Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good as far as I can remember. I think I went out a little bit, kind of, sort of. Not really. I really don't remember what I did this weekend. I watched the game Saturday. I heard that UConn lost in women's basketball, so that was interesting. But I didn't watch a second of it, unfortunately. I wasn't on Twitter like most people have been saying. They didn't know the game was on until Twitter erupted. But I wasn't even on Twitter at that point, so I didn't get to see it at all. But UConn women finally lost, and I can't remember my weekend outside of that. So how are you, Mr. Troy?
Well, apparently a little better than you, because I remember what I did all weekend. But like you, I didn't watch the game. I heard the UConn ladies lost, which is a surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you got to tip your hat. They are a dynasty, but like any dynasty, every great team has to lose at some point. I just didn't think it was going to happen this year. I thought they were going to win another championship, but hey, those things happen. For us, though, Kevin, on Go Big or Go Home, there's really not much going on in the Big Ten right now. Not a whole lot, but we got a good show today. We're going to talk about Gonzaga, North Carolina quickly. I think we've beaten the NCAA tournament to death over the past 3 weeks. But today we're going to talk about a couple of topics that relate not specifically to the Big Ten, but to college athletics. One is this whole issue about paying players. I want to talk. You and I have not done a show together. I've given my opinion many times about this. I want to talk to you about it, get a new perspective on it. I was a former college coach, so I have a pretty strong perspective on this. And then we're going to talk about one and done, not just primarily in basketball, but I guess that's going to base our conversation on college athletes that go to school with no intention, Kevin, of graduating, going to professional sports earlier than graduation time. And so I think it'll be a good show today. May not go a full hour, but tonight, Kevin, Gonzaga, North Carolina. You wrote an article about a month ago saying this is Gonzaga's best chance to win the title, and here it is. They are 40 minutes away from winning the national title. Can they do it?
Well, like I wrote about a month ago or so, before the tournament started, actually at that point, Gonzaga actually hadn't lost a game, so I thought they were going to go undefeated in the regular season and then move on to the postseason and, probably eventually lose. I didn't pick Gonzaga to win the whole thing. Even at that point, I didn't think Gonzaga was the best team in the country, but they were one of around 8 or so teams that I thought could win the title. There was no juggernaut. There was no 38-0 Kentucky team who had to, get the best game from another elite team in order, to have a chance at losing. It wasn't like that this year. And we saw that in the Final Four with South Carolina making it, Oregon making it without their best big, arguably, best defensive big anyway. And then you got North Carolina and Gonzaga, and this is what, CBS and the ratings people wanted. Television networks certainly wanted this tournament to go and end up with North Carolina and Gonzaga when faced with, potentially South Carolina and Oregon. We talked a little bit about that. But, in short, Gonzaga absolutely can win the title. I think they're a couple point underdogs, and I might actually be less than that. I haven't checked the latest line, but I think I heard 1.5, 2. And that's, I think, rightfully so. I think North Carolina's probably the better overall team. I would favor North Carolina, this coming from a Duke fan. North Carolina's got, I think, better scorers. I think that Joel Berry at point guard can score it easier. I think if he's healthy anyway, and he's not 100% healthy, but reasonably healthy, which he is, I think he can score it a little better than Nigel Williams-Goss. I think both guys are great leaders at point guard. Gonzaga's got the better defensive team, no question about it. In this game, Gonzaga has the bigs to actually match up with North Carolina, which is something that basically no other team can do. North Carolina is the number one rebounding team in the country. number one offensive rebounding team in the country, and they get like 15 offensive boards a game. I remember against Oregon at one point early in the second half, they already had like 11, 12. So I don't remember the final tally, but North Carolina had their way inside with Oregon, and that's not going to be the case against Gonzaga. Shemek Karnowski gets all the pub, the 7-foot, 300 monster for Gonzaga, who just, overwhelms not even just West Coast Conference athletes, but, North Carolina. Shemek Karnowski will be the biggest guy on the court, and that's including Kennedy Meeks, who's a very big body for North Carolina, but Karnowski's even bigger. And then you got Zach Collins, my favorite Gonzaga player this year. He's going to be the NBA probably next year. He's just a freshman. He comes off the big. During the regular season, he only averaged 17 minutes or something crazy a game. But this tournament, I'm not sure what he's averaging. I'm sure it's over 20 because Mark Few knows this is a one-and-done tournament, and we need to get our NBA bodies at Gonzaga out on the floor as much as possible. So Collins had a big game against South Carolina, and I expect him to do well in this North Carolina game tonight. I don't think either team will dominate inside, outside. I think Gonzaga will keep this game in the 70s. North Carolina's not going to run up and down and score 80, 90 points in this title game, but I do slightly favor North Carolina. But it's going to be interesting because Gonzaga acted as the bigs to match up with Carolina. So Carolina can't play volleyball on the offensive glass and just get easy deuce after deuce and win the points in the paint battle by 30. This should be a really good game from every aspect, no matter how you look at it, from the perimeter to down inside. Saying that Gonzaga can match up with the number one rebounding team in the country in North Carolina, that's interesting enough to me. And the fact that Gonzaga has its best defense ever, in my opinion, and according to Mark Few, I think this Gonzaga team has more than just a shot. That's why they're only a couple point underdogs.
Yeah, well, I told you I cheer for the underdog, and many people are picking Gonzaga as the underdog. North Carolina, hailing from the ACC, like you said, Kevin, battle-tested throughout a conference where probably, legitimately, Kevin, I would say in the ACC, probably 8 legitimate deep where you look at the 8th team can beat a number one. That's about as low as I'll go there. But North Carolina does have a very talented team. Kornowski is finally going to have a battle inside, but I think he's going to have a good battle, which will test North Carolina, which I don't think they've been tested before, because Gonzaga does have the big men in the middle, like you said, that are able to at least contest rebounds. Doesn't mean they're going to win the rebounding battle, Kevin, but they're at least going to have bodies in there that can contest and not make it easy for North Carolina. Therefore, it goes back to the good old adage, this could come down to guard play. So we'll see which guards come to play tonight. And honestly, the way that this tournament has went, it was kind of following suit right out of the gate. Then we had some upsets. But we've seen through the whole tournament, it only takes one hot hand from outside three-point land to really turn a game around. And so we'll see what happens tonight. Which team can shoot it better from the perimeter? I think my key to this game, I know we're talking about the bigs, and a lot of people are talking about the bigs. I think the key to this game, Kevin, who is more effective from behind three-point range? Because I really believe the rebounding battle, the way that they're going to match up inside, it's going to be even, maybe plus or minus 4 or 5, which is pretty even. It's not going to be dominated by one team or the other. I think it's going to come down to three-point shooting tonight to see who wins the title. Now that you and I think this is going to be a good game, means it's going to be a blowout, one way or the other. That's the way it's been all year for us. We do a darn Big Ten show, and I'll say it this way. We've been good on some things, but sometimes in the tournament we've been way off base. And I don't know where to go with that. But, moving ahead, Kevin, one of the things, bringing you aboard, doing the show with you, I haven't really had a chance to chat with you about a topic that has been near and dear to me. I even did when I was getting my master's degree. I did a little, I guess, mini-type series on this, and it's about paying college athletes. It has been the topic of discussion actually for quite a long time, I don't think a lot of people realize that this goes back more than just a couple of years. This has been talked about long before. It just never made the headlines because it always got squashed. But a few years ago, you were talking about video games and getting the likeness of names off the video game, because if you're going to make money from the names, then the player should be entitled to the cut of the money. And then you're talking about DraftKings, and they've eliminated their college basketball betting. I'm a big DraftKings guy. Kevin, ultimately, this debate has went on for years and years and years about paying college athletes. Now, when you look at it across the board, in all divisions, I played Division III. I played for the love of the game. I would think that I had the ability to play Division I, but I was a soccer guy. Not like that's a money-making sport. But you get into Division I athletics with basketball and football and hockey at some schools, those are money-making sports for some of these institutions. And you are asking a college athlete to go out, participate, so that the school and the NCAA can make millions upon millions of dollars, and I will say it live on this show. The NCAA is one of the greediest institutions in the world. Even more greedy than the NFL, Kevin. It is all about the almighty dollar, and I honestly, they act like they give a hoot about the student athlete. I'm going to tell you this. I don't think they give a hoot about the student athlete. It's all about the dollar for the NCAA. So before I get into where I am on this side, I'm going to turn it over to you, let you give a few notes about your opinion, and then let's talk about whether or not college athletes should get paid.
I'll say this, and you brought up you played, and it was a Division III university, University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and I came from there as well. I didn't play. I didn't play the sports. I wrote about the sports teams, and that's how Troy and I met each other. I was a sports editor at the time of the school paper, and so Troy, found me out and talked to me on one of his shows, and the rest is history. But so I don't know the complete ins and outs and of what it's like to be an athlete, but I have a general idea. So I don't have, firsthand knowledge of it, but I think I have a better understanding than most. And I'll say that D3 is definitely different than D1, D2. It's all different because D3, and I think I'm not hard-nosed one way or the other on this topic. I think that the NCAA is greedy in general. I'm with you there. I think that the NCAA makes a ton of money off of athletes. I think that it is all about the dollar for the NCAA. I think they care a little bit, enough not to, hurt college athletes, from, I guess, a literal sense of digging their just making college athletes miserable, in order to make money. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think the NCAA is greedy, and I think in the end, of course, they want to make money off of college athletes. Of course they do. But I'll say this, that like I said, D3 is different than D2, D1. There are a ton of sports out there that these athletic departments, put together for teams, and most of the teams, more often than not, they don't make money for the school, realistically. They don't make money. And football, basketball, football for certain schools certainly makes a ton of money. And there's so much that goes into this debate. And I'll say this for D3, just to start off, that D3 doesn't get a lot of publicity, doesn't make a lot of money for schools. There's not as many sports. And so at the same time, there's not a ton of money that I guess can be given out. These schools are typically smaller in general. They're not hosting 100,000 kids. And so I'll say that D3, you don't get scholarships. You don't get athletic scholarships. UW-Whitewater, a team that's, basically in the Stag Bowl, the football, title for D3, they're basically in it every year, and they don't. I don't think they make much money off of it. Luckily they get to the title game, and so that game is on ESPNU every year. But overall, I don't think UW-Whitewater, if they do make money off their football team, even it's not a ton. And the athletes don't get paid to go to school there. They don't get a free scholarship. So the athletes are getting nothing, and there isn't much that I think that necessarily the school can give in terms of money for those athletes. So D3, a D3 athlete goes through a lot more, I think, and it's more rigorous because you have to practice just as much as D1 athletes. No coach says, you know what, we're in Division III. It's okay. You can skip practices. You don't have to come. D1 practices aren't longer. They're not tougher. There's no difference there. So D3 athletes put in the same time and effort if they want to be great that a D1 athlete does. And yet they're not given a free scholarship. So they come out and they don't have a lot of money or a lot of time to make money, in college. And these D1 athletes don't have a lot of time to make money for themselves in college as well, but they're getting scholarships to play. So you're essentially, realistically, a scholarship. You're getting money to play. These, athletes going to D1 universities, all getting paid to play unless you're a walk-on, of course. D2, I think all D2 schools are given a finite amount of scholarships, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, but I think each school gets a certain amount of scholarships that can get paid. I think certain scholarships can be like semi-paid, half-paid. D2 is kind of in the middle. D3, you can't give away athletic scholarships and, go to college for free. So I will say that D1 athletes get paid to a certain extent in terms of getting their scholarship. And say I had a daughter and she went to UCLA for a swimming scholarship and she went to UCLA for free on that. I don't think the NCAA is necessarily taking advantage of her as a swimming athlete. I think that, a football athlete, so to say, which goes into a completely different debate in this. That's why there's so many avenues within this, should college athletes be paid? A football athlete, how much money UCLA football makes or Alabama football. There are certain schools that make a ton off of their football team. So yeah, absolutely, those athletes should be paid. But again, D3 athletes put in the same exact amount of time as D1 athletes if they really want to try and compete. So should they be paid? Absolutely. It's just hard to find where the money goes. There's a ton of different avenues, like I said, in this discussion, but I will say that D3 athletes can't get paid for going to school and playing sports. D1 athletes do if they get athletic scholarships. So it's a little different when talking about, which athletes should be paid, which level should they be paid, should all sports be paid even if they're not bringing in money. Even certain D1 football programs lose money annually as opposed to making money. So it's hard to say where all the money even comes from if you do want to pay every athlete in football, basketball, swimming, lacrosse, doesn't matter. Do all athletes get paid? There's just a ton of different little debates within this overarching debate.
I want to go back, and I just want to touch base because when I coached college soccer, I transitioned to school from Division III to Division II, and you're absolutely right on the scholarship, is that my school, and I coached at Upper Iowa University, I was allotted X amount of scholarships for soccer, and those scholarships are not just, okay, I believe I had 5 scholarships. It's been so long ago, and I'm getting old, Kevin. But I
think it's something like that.
Yeah, 5 full scholarships I had, which equaled the amount of tuition, and I could do whatever I wanted with the money. So that would mean if I wanted to scholarship a roster of 22 and give everybody some money to go to play soccer, I could split that money up in $1,000 increments or whatever it would be. I opted to go. I never gave anybody a full ride. A lot of times we worked with financial aid to see what the parental contribution would be, the expected family contribution, and I would make it so that the loan value would be reduced. So that's how I work Division II. But I want to go back to something, Kevin, and that is a student athlete in Division I is getting free education. However, it's going to parlay into the second part of our discussion, which is athletes that go to school and are going to leave for the NBA. When a student athlete goes to play athletics, they understand what they're doing and they go to school. They're going to be a student athlete. The NCAA has requirements for grade point, a lot of schools, a lot of programs. I'm going to put it this way, because I know for a fact that this is always an issue. Most coaches expect their kids to be in class. They have attendance regulations for the program, blah, 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 blah. So is called the student athlete. Where I'm at, though, Kevin, is people will argue, well, they're getting paid because they get an athletic scholarship. And I agree. They are. And they have no student loan debt when they leave. That's great. So, yes, they're getting paid. However, student athletes, and, yes, I was a student athlete, there is no time, Kevin. There is no time to go get a job to work to have any spending money. And when you look at the student athletes that are going to college, many of them don't have any spending money. Yeah, sure, some of them come from well-to-do families, and so mom and dad can drop them $100 here and there. I actually went to school at Division III, like I said, no scholarship. I didn't work when I was going to school because I couldn't due to the fact that I was playing athletics. But I was eligible for what was called work study. And that is a fund that is meant to offset the cost of tuition. Well, what my parents did, instead of that work study money going back to my tuition, my parents actually paid that, Kevin, and let me keep my work study checks for spending money. And so my proposition, if the NCAA wants to pay student athletes, then you need to work out a scale that works in the financial aid with this work-study program, because most student athletes are going to qualify for work-study. The problem is not all of them can work for work-study, if that makes any sense at all. Because I agree that some of these student athletes need to have spending money to buy a pizza, to go buy a 12-pack of soda, to go buy a pack of gum. Sometimes not everybody comes from a family where mom and dad can just drop $100 every week. Some of these student athletes, Kevin, have absolutely nothing. So all of a sudden a booster comes by and says, you know what, you're such a great athlete, I'm going to drop you X amount of dollars just because I want you to go to my school. And if you come to my school, we're going to give you X amount of dollars every month. Guess what? That's where the unethical behavior comes in, because these kids have no way to make money while they're playing sports and while they're going to class. So I agree that there needs to be a system set up where there can be a stipend given to the student athlete so that they have some type of money coming in. So hopefully that makes sense, Kevin.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I'll say this, that if there are athletes that deserve to get paid, it is the D3 athletes. You know, like I mentioned, and you just talked about for a while, is that there's just no time. Like I said, that a D3 athlete, if they want to compete and start and, be a regular player on whatever team, swimming, water polo, lacrosse, boys tennis, girls tennis, football, basketball, baseball, softball, it doesn't matter the sport, you have to put the time in. And whether you're a D3 athlete, D1 athlete, you have to put the time in. So there is no time outside to have a job and have that extra spending money, whether you're getting a free scholarship or not. But so, especially if you're a D3 athlete and you're not getting paid to play your sport, then you're really screwed, because you have no money to get that job for, future debt, because you're going to be in debt. If you're an athlete playing D3, it's just inevitable. And D1, you can have no debt, but then again, you have no spending money, like you said. So the D2 stuff is kind of where it gets murky and how, you want to split that up. But D1, D3, two different worlds. And if there are athletes, in my opinion, that really do deserve to get paid, it is the D3 athletes. And so I'm curious, I guess, onto where you fall. And I think, I'm assuming that you would want all athletes to be paid because they just don't have time. D1, D2, D3 doesn't matter. To have a job and have that extra spending money, whether you're going to class essentially for free or not, going to school for free or not. No matter how many years you spend in college, whether it's one and you're a one-and-done athlete off to the NBA, or it's three, in the NFL, if you think you can go early in the draft and you leave for 3 years, or, you're a 4-year or 5-year or 6-year based on transferring in grad school and, losing a year to injury. You have some 6-year athletes playing basketball, or I'm sure, other sports, lacrosse, whatever. So all of these kids put in a ton of time and deserve to get paid for it. As of now, again, you've got D1 and some D2 kids getting paid on scholarships, but again, they need extra money somewhere to be able to do something with their lives with the time that they have, / being able to eat, being able to do anything. So I think D1 kids get compensated for, meals and stuff like that, and that's great. And again, you don't have debt exiting college, but it's that other stuff whether you want to go to a movie or you want to go out to dinner with your girlfriend, boyfriend, you need some money somewhere. It's just a matter of where it comes from. And I think partially, some people advocate against it because, where does this money come from? Certain schools, 50 or so, I'm not sure the exact number, but, a couple of years ago, again, not every D1 school made money even off of football, and that's the biggest moneymaker there is. So I guess where does the money come from? Some people talk about the conferences kind of, taking all the money that they make together, like the SEC conference has, their own television network. Big Ten, I think almost every conference basically has their own television network now. You got schools like Texas, even in the Big 12, obviously going to make more money than a school like Texas Tech. So should, the conference together use all of that money as a whole and, dish it out to every Texas Tech football kid just because, Texas has its own Longhorn network. And so should Texas be paid more? Texas athletes be paid more than Texas Tech athletes? Should the conferences take all that money and disperse it out? I think just in general, you want athletes to be paid, and I'm with you that they should be paid. It's just a matter of how you want to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I kind of draw a line, though, Kevin. I don't think they should be paid like I'm out working. I work today, and I make a nice salary. I pay my bills. I do quite well for myself. They don't need to be paid like that, Kevin. But I think they need to have some of that spending money. And that's why I said, in my financial aid package, and I was young when it came out, but I think that there's a portion in there where people qualify for federal work study. So what the NCAA can do is that there's this federal work study part, and it's on every facet about working and your situation and when the financial aid comes out. If a student athlete qualifies for this work study money, well, make that an automatic thing where, hey, they're a student athlete. That is considered work. So they still are eligible to receive this federal work study money. Now, however you want to make this stipend, make it, but I don't think your 5-star blue chip athlete gets more of a stipend than your D3 non-athletic scholarship player. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it straight across the board, because if you start getting into, well, Joe Blow is a 5-star and Susie over here is a Division III lacrosse player, no. Make it a system that is going to be equivalent across the board, and the one way that I've thought about this is in your financial aid package. You either qualify for work study or you don't qualify for work study. And if you qualify, being a student athlete, that qualifies you to receive that stipend, and however they want to break it out, that is up to the NCAA. It sounds like it's a pretty simple thing, Kevin. I know there's more to it than what I just said, but I think that there should be some sort of small stipend so that these student athletes can go enjoy a pizza on a Wednesday night. So that's all I have.
No, and I'm with you. I think it was a few years ago too that I forgot who it was. It was Kemba Walker or Shabazz Napier. I think after they hit like a game-winning shot, or to get to the Final Four or something, and then they talked about how they made some statement about how, okay, going to go out and celebrate. Oh wait, I have no money to do this. So I forgot who it was. I think it was one of those UConn guards a few years ago. I could be completely off, but I think it was some basketball point guard, who coming off a big game and they wanted to celebrate afterwards with their team and they had no money to do so. And it, drew up a little controversy. And, this topic gets brought up every year at some point. And again, there's just so many different avenues and how you want to disperse it. And, you're saying every athlete should get the same exact amount, and I don't disagree with you. Again, D1, D2, D3, half scholarship, full scholarship, no scholarship, partial scholarship, doesn't matter your situation, the time you put in to be a collegiate athlete, you can't necessarily have a job outside of it. And so you need that extra money somewhere. Whether you're getting a full ride scholarship or absolutely nothing. So I guess that's my sense on it, is that, I'm not hard-nosed one way or another. I think your idea certainly makes sense. Like you said, there's still a ton that goes into it that we didn't talk about, but in general, these kids deserve something. There's no question about it. And if there are kids that are deserving, it is those D3, water polo athletes that truly get no love, no TV time, no anything, no scholarship whatsoever. And yet they're putting hours and hours and hours into practice and, game film and all that stuff. So D3, I think, gets the short end of the stick by getting absolutely nothing. D1 kids, at least you're exiting debt-free. That's cool. But the amount of money, obviously college sports makes money as a whole. So I don't want to say that, even some of the top D1 schools don't make money on their football team. That's fine. The NCAA still makes money as a whole. Otherwise, college sports wouldn't go on. They wouldn't be televised. So college sports in general, the NCAA is making a profit. The NCAA has workers working for them, in general as a company. So for a reason, they're making money. So there is money out there to be dispersed. It's just a matter of, do you want to divvy it up by conference, by sport, by gender, however you want to do it. In the end, though, I think we're both on kind of the same page that these kids need to be paid because they're putting in the hours to do it, whether you're getting, a free scholarship to Harvard or you're getting nothing going to, the University of Wisconsin River Falls, which no one outside of Wisconsin even knows that that's a college. So either or.
I know where that is.
Well, that's because we went to UW-Whitewater.
I had friends, though, that went to UW River Falls. It's a nice little college, let me tell you, or university. But you know what, Kevin, this also then leads into another debate about people getting mad when college athletes are given this full-ride scholarship, and then after 1 year in basketball or 2 years in football, they decide to leave their school high and dry and go to the NFL. And guess what? I don't have a problem. You're going to do what's right for your family. You want to go make millions upon millions of dollars? Go. Fine. See you. Goodbye. But then people get mad. They get mad when these kids, Kevin, leave and jump out of their scholarship and want to go pro. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? Most of these people, they come from situations where that money is going to change not only their life, but their parents' life and their family's life. I have no problem with them doing that. But I can't stand the people who are saying, oh, college athletes shouldn't get paid. Then they get mad when the college athlete bolts after 2 years. What do you want? They're not getting paid in college, and they can go make millions upon millions of dollars. Why are you mad at them? There's no loyalty from the NCAA, and therefore, when somebody bolts to the professional ranks, I don't get mad either. They're going to do what's best for them and their family. And I've heard people say, well, then they should have to repay their scholarship. Whatever. Debate whatever you want. There's no loyalty on either side of this. The kid's going to do what they want to do. I don't agree that everyone should go pro because some of them need to work on their game. But I don't have a problem, Kevin, with people bolting to the professional ranks. What about you?
No, I have no problem with that either. I mean, if, I take anyone, just myself as an example. I mean, if I were an athlete and, I played throughout my life, but not collegiately. And so if I'm sitting there at the end of my freshman year, and I'm whoever, Jason Tatum, let's say for Duke, he's going to be a top 10 pick, no question, maybe top 5 in the NBA. And I think the NBA is a good, a good sport. Basketball is a good sport to use this with because you can literally be one and done. You can take fall classes and, sit there, watch movies, just attend class, and then leave in the spring when, your sport's over. All right, thanks, Duke, for the education. Thanks for the free ride. Now I'm gone. I'm going to the NBA, and I have no issue with that whatsoever because if the NBA is dangling millions and millions and millions of dollars in front of your face and you're guaranteed to get it, why in the world would you not leave? I would leave, absolutely. College life was great. College, those 5 years that I spent, great 5 years. But if millions of dollars are being offered to you in a guaranteed contract, why in the world would you skip that? So it's great when kids can go to the NBA, NFL, wherever, professional lacrosse league, whatever. It's great to stay in school, and it's great to see those athletes stay in school for 4 years because it does heighten the product. And some people talk about how college basketball, the product is much lower as far as a viewing experience is concerned because you do have all these one-and-done kids, so you don't get the best of the best athletes staying 4 years. And so it does, hurt the product. Yet this March Madness year, we talked about it, I think, on our other show that we do, how the ratings are up, 30, 35% throughout the tournament, depending on what avenue you want to look at. So obviously people are still watching the NCAA tournament, whether Jason Tatum goes pro after this year or he stays for 3 years. If you have whoever, if you have Lonzo Ball stays 3 years. Yeah, it's great. It's more entertaining to watch UCLA basketball at that point. But again, ratings this March Madness compared to last March Madness, up, 10, 15%, historically up 30, 35%, on some digital apps up 60, 65%. So we're still watching whether these players stay in school or not. Obviously, it's cool if they do stay in school. Miles Bridges sticking with the Big Ten, he's kind of up in the air as to whether he'll go to the NBA or not. But if he goes, that's great. He's making millions of dollars. He's going to be a first-round pick guaranteed. It's just a matter of, do I want to go and be the 17th pick or next year, as long as I'm healthy and, next year's draft class isn't as heavily loaded at the top as this year's, maybe I can work myself to be a top 5 pick. So each case is different. I think the NBA is an interesting one because you can go one and done, get your free scholarship for a semester, and then your sports season is done and you get drafted, you're gone. But in the end, it doesn't hurt me at all because I am willing to sit there and watch every March Madness that there is, and the ratings have shown it this year, that we don't really care if these kids stay 3-4 years and we get the best possible college basketball experience as we can. We're still going to watch regardless. So if you're sitting there complaining about it, these kids, 18 years old, jumping at the NBA for millions of dollars, I don't know what to tell you because I would do the same.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this, Kevin, that not everybody is ready to jump to the NBA, but they dangle the money, and a lot of times there's a lot of hype. I look at people that declare themselves eligible for any draft, and even college football. When a junior wants to come out, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, you'd probably benefit from another year. But a lot of times the money's there. They don't want to risk the injury in college. However, I want to flip the table here, Kevin. A lot of people complain about these guys that jump and say they're going to go. But what about the ones that stay? The ones that do enjoy college life, the ones that are doing it for free and, maybe risking injury and giving up millions of dollars to go hang out with their friends for another year. There are more than enough of those out there that nobody ever talks about, Kevin. Nobody ever talks about the guy that wants to stay and, oh, what a great decision that was. It's almost like it's expected. But at the end of the day, these kids are going to be future professional athletes. College is the building block. That's where they're developing their skills. But I always laugh when everybody jumps on, oh, my God, they left. They went to the NBA. They're going to the NFL. Why are they doing that? They should stay in school. Well, where are all these people applauding the people that stay in school? Like if Bridges, if he stays, is it going to be national headlines and applaud him and say, oh, this is a great concept? No, it'll be quickly on ESPN saying Bridges is going to return for another year at Michigan State. Boom, done, over. However, if he jumps to the NBA, then the debate's going to come out, should players have to stay in school until they graduate? I don't get it, Kevin. Why is it a double-edged sword?
No, I don't know. And, little different path, but I mean, in general, I'll say that sports fans and everyone is a hypocrite in some way, in one way of thinking in life, sports or not, or another. Everyone's hypocritical in some avenue in life. But I'll say that, these same people that don't want these kids to leave, or, they say, yeah, you should leave if you're, a one-and-done athlete. They're the same people that will sit there on National Recruiting Day and, laugh and go crazy and have a party over Miles Bridges signing at Michigan State, or Jadeveon Clowney going from high school and saying, yep, I'm putting my hat on, I'm going to South Carolina, and we applaud the athlete and we go absolutely insane and we love to have the athlete there, and then we absolutely demolish the athlete when they want to leave after their junior season. Or you're Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, and you're saying, nah, this bowl game really doesn't mean anything much to me. I don't think I owe it to the team, to play a pointless poinsettia bowl game. If it's a national championship, that's something different. But to play a pointless, money-grabbing, NCAA-created poinsettia bowl game, or one of the other 50 bowl games that you're out there and you're guaranteed to get selected in the first round of the NFL draft, I have no problem with athletes skipping there either. That's a different topic.
Is there only 50 bowl games?
It sure seemed like more than that.
It seems like there's like 365. Like they could have a bowl game every day of the year. Again, it goes back to what I said in our other segment of the show. The NCAA, Kevin, greedy. So I'm standing up for the student athlete right now. I don't care if you go to the pros, take the money and run, and yes, you should get some bit of a stipend, whether it be $20 or $40, enough to be able to go grab a pizza. I don't think they should get paid huge amount of money. I don't think they should be making thousands upon thousands of dollars while they're going to school, but they should get something to be able to enjoy college life. Because I was a student athlete, and yes, you know what, Kevin, I did enjoy college. And if you ever saw the movie Groundhog Day, I would redo my college experience at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater 4.5 years over and over every time it came up for renewal. I loved my time. However, during the soccer season, Kevin, it was, like you said, soccer, class, soccer, class, soccer, class, soccer, class. And we're talking the middle of August until November. That's 2.5 months of doing nothing but athletics and class. And then, once the season's over, now I'm in the weight room. So it's still class, weight room, class. I did soccer every day for 4.5 years, along with going to school. And you have to put that time in. And again, you had said it great. There's no difference in time between a Division I athlete and a Division III athlete, other than skill level. The time commitment, actually the same. I don't know any D3 athletes that cut corners any more than a Division I athlete. We don't like to practice, believe me. I never liked to practice, but I had to. And that's just the way it goes. So with that said, Kevin, pretty good show today. Talked about paying athletes jumping ship and going professional ranks. What else you got for the listeners before we let them go today?
Well, I'll say this, that, you mentioned there were no D3 athletes that cut corners, and I think if you're a D3 athlete cutting corners, then I guess you should be good enough to play D2 or D1 or eventually professional. So there's no reason you should be in D3 cutting corners if you're a star D3 athlete, I guess, in my opinion. So I laughed at that. I just think that in general these kids need something. Like you said, they shouldn't be making thousands of dollars a week, a month, but it's crazy how little a college kid can survive on. I think that in general, groceries and, going out and stuff like that, I mean, just living the typical college kid life, I mean, $100 a week even, honestly, $100 a week to go out on a Wednesday night and buy yourself a $5 pizza at your local little pizza place at UW River Falls or at UCLA. I'm sure they have $5 pizzas there somewhere for kids. So
Little Caesars.
There you go, Little Caesars, $5 pizzas.
No Little Caesars where I live, but you see the commercial.
Yeah. So my point is $100 a week, for any athlete. And you talk about, I mean, at this point, D3, Final Fours on TV, and D3, football is on ESPNU. The NCAA is making money. Like I said, there are people working for the NCAA for a reason. You obviously have money floating around. It really does not have to be a lot. If there are athletes that do deserve to get paid, it is that D3 water polo kid, in Texas who gets absolutely no pub whatsoever, gets nothing, no sort of scholarship, and yet they put all the time in that a D1 athlete does because, again, the college has restrictions on how much practice time you're given. It's not the NFL, not the NBA, not the NHL, where you can just, continuously ask your $1 million athletes to put in film work, or, you have your stars like your, Terrell Owens not showing up to practice or not showing up to film room until, 20 minutes late, and it makes a little news. But it's not like that where you're asking people to put in endless hours and hours and hours in practice. You don't have that time. There's only a finite amount of time you can practice. So, again, it's something that I think is interesting is that D3 kids get nothing, yet they're asked to put in the weight room time, the film room time, the practice time. Like you said, you played soccer for 4.5 years straight every single day at UW-Whitewater, which I'm sure most of our listeners listening to this don't know that UW-Whitewater even exists, outside of maybe that cool football team that they see on once every year playing that other purple team. So D3 athletes get absolutely nothing, have to put in all the time that the D1 athletes do. So it's not just the D1 Jadeveon Clowneys of the world that, make the NCAA millions of dollars because, they get a ton of YouTube clips for hits. It's the D3 athletes that get no recognition, no publicity, and no money for playing college athletics, yet they have to put in all the time that the stars at the D1 levels do that make all this money. So every athlete deserves it. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, no matter how much you're getting, whether it's a free scholarship to Harvard or nothing to play for, whatever D3 school, wherever in the country.
I'm going to add this too, Kevin. As a former D3 coach, we push the limits of practice time. And what I mean by that is you are right. The NCAA gives you practice times and how many hours per week you can practice in season and out of season. And as a D3 coach, do you think we took time off? Heck no. We pushed them in the weight room. They played indoor soccer. They did other things for the maximum amount of time that I could be with them in the off season. Every minute was valuable to me as a Division III coach. Every minute in the off season, I pushed it to the limit. We maxed out our capacity for our involvement with our kids in the off season. And that's part of being a coach. That's part of being a player. It's part of being in college athletics. So with that said, for the youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter, I am Old Man Troy. You can find me, TroyRobert967 on Twitter. We will get back with you next week with another episode of Go Big or Go Home. Have a great day, everyone.